When Jurgen Klopp leaves Liverpool at the end of this season, someone will face the daunting task of replacing him. As we know from cases like Alex Ferguson at Manchester United and Arsene Wenger at Arsenal, following an iconic manager at a football club can be an extremely difficult job. The same goes for players. Whoever inherited the number 10 shirt at Barcelona after Lionel Messi, the number 14 shirt at Arsenal after Thierry Henry, or the number 5 shirt at Real Madrid after Zinedine Zidane was almost doomed to failure when put side to side against their predecessors. Some clubs just get it right though, either by luck or by judgment. A year after selling their all-time leading goalscorer Sergio Aguero, who had the best minutes per goal ratio of the Premier League era, Manchester City signed Erling Haaland, who has since scored 50 goals in 52 league games, overtaking Aguero as the most prolific scorer of the Premier League era. When Bayern Munich lost longtime club captain Philipp Lahm to retirement after 15 years of service to the club, a man who was world-class at either right-back or in midfield, you'd have thought that they would struggle to replace him for generations. Only for Joshua Kimmich, practically a perfect Regan, to come along and step into his boots. Perhaps the wildest example of all comes courtesy of Liverpool, who sold future two-time Ballon d'Or winner and star man Kevin Keegan to Hamburg in 1977, which appeared to be a crushing blow at the time, only to replace him with Kenny Dalglish the following month, arguably Liverpool's greatest ever player, who went on to win 21 trophies with the club over the next 13 years. It's not those types of successions that we're interested in today, though. In fact, it is the precise opposite. Leeds United replacing Marcelo Bielsa, one of the most respected managers in the game, with Jesse Marsch, a fictional character from an Apple TV series, is much more like it. Leicester City, likewise, replacing Riyad Mahrez with Rachid Ghazal in the hope that all French-born Algerian wingers must be of a similar standard, Real Madrid going from Karim Benzema to Joselu this season, or England hoping that, owing to his eccentric haircuts, shared initials, and affection for a dead ball situation, David Bentley could replace David Beckham. Bentley retired in his 20s with 7 caps to his name, and now owns bars in Gibraltar and Marbella.
We find guests they just keep coming back. They love the whole vibe, they love the energy. La Sala Banús is what La Sala's all about.
Without further ado then, who was certainly a downgrade on Pelé, having been nicknamed the next Pelé, though that was always likely to be an unfortunate comparison, here are some of the worst, biggest, or just funniest downgrades in the history of football. 7th, Luis Suarez to Mario Balotelli. When talking about downgrades in football, I think they have to be near enough direct replacements. It would be easy, for example, for me to make this one even more amusing by saying Luis Suarez to Ricky Lambert, who was signed in the same summer that Balotelli arrived and Suarez departed, despite the fact that Lambert was actually better for Liverpool than Balotelli, but the reality is that Balotelli was the big name and big money centre-forward that Liverpool signed following Suarez's departure, and the player that the Reds pinned the most hope on replacing Suarez's impact and goals. By the same token, I have seen it said that Gabriel Obertan replaced Cristiano Ronaldo at Manchester United, and Mariano Diaz replaced him in Madrid, both of which would make this 7, if they were true. In reality, Obertan was a cheap punt by Alex Ferguson, I said punt, calm down, who arrived for £3 million after Ronaldo had been sold for a world record-breaking fee. And Mariano might have inherited Ronaldo's famous number 7 shirt in Madrid, but he was only ever really brought back to the club as a backup to Karim Benzema following a single season at Lyon. If anything, Antonio Valencia was the closest thing to a Ronaldo replacement at Manchester United, and though obviously nowhere near Ronaldo's level, he was actually very good in his first few years at Old Trafford. Meanwhile, the real Ronaldo replacement in Madrid was actually Eden Hazard 12 months later, who arrived for a club record fee and who Madrid hoped would become the best player in the world, just like Ronaldo had. He was genuinely a dreadful replacement and is one of the worst signings of all time, which is why he made my shortlist. And he probably would have featured had him been signed in the same summer that Ronaldo departed, to be perfectly honest. Anyway, back to downgrades that do actually feature in this 7. It's hard to imagine a worse replacement for Luis Suarez at Liverpool than Mario Balotelli. Well, I suppose maybe Keir Starmer or the exhumed remains of Bernard Manning, but at least they would have been much cheaper and would have arrived with far lower expectations. We should start by being as fair as possible to Liverpool and Balotelli by pointing out that, of course, Balotelli had an impossible task. In his last season at Liverpool, Suarez scored 31 goals in 33 Premier League games without scoring a single penalty, in what is arguably the greatest individual campaign in the history of the Premier League. There was no one that Liverpool could realistically have signed who could have replicated Suarez's overall impact or output. Nonetheless, Balotelli was especially useless. Whereas Suarez's tenacity and tireless running made him the ideal candidate to lead the line in an energetic Brendan Rodgers team, Balotelli looked as though he was running through treacle. That is, on the very rare occasions in which he ran at all. In 16 Premier League appearances at Anfield, having been signed for a not insignificant £16 million and on big wages, Balotelli scored a grand total of 1 goal. As a result, Liverpool went from being Premier League runners-up with Suarez, finishing just 2 points behind that season's champions, to finishing 6th with Balotelli, some 25 points off top spot. From 101 goals scored the previous season, they scored just 52 with Balotelli, Lambert and Fabio Borini as their attacking options. I'm not sure that anyone's fallen off that hard, that fast, since David Bentley went from scoring bangers for Blackburn to flogging buy two get one free deals on cocktails.
We've got a great offer in the style Monday to Thursdays. It's the 1, 2, 3 offer, not 3. So you buy 2 cocktails like this and you get a third identical. And it's a great offer which we're really happy with. You can come along and have some great times with your friends or your family. Get mangled like me.
Oh, David, what do you like? Suarez went on to score 198 goals in 283 games for Barcelona. Meanwhile, Balotelli went on loan to AC Milan, where he scored 1 goal in 20 Serie A games before joining Nice on a free transfer. Overall, I don't think that it's too harsh to say that he was a pretty significant downgrade. 6th, Thibaut Courtois to Kepa Arrizabalaga. It's always good to hashtag stay humble, so I should begin this segment by conceding that I thought Kepa Arrizabalaga was capable of replacing Thibaut Courtois at Chelsea. I know. Before you all point and laugh, I will just try to explain. First and foremost, I never thought that Thibaut Courtois was that good at Chelsea. Obviously, he was very talented. He'd already illustrated that during his 3 years on loan with Atletico Madrid, and he is a very imposing figure at 200 centimetres or 6 foot 7 inches tall. But I think people forget that during his 4 seasons at Chelsea, he was prone to the odd mistake, and it's worth noting that he never made the PFA Team of the Year or won Chelsea's Player of the Year award or anything like that. Arrizabalaga, meanwhile, though the fee always seemed extortionate at best and downright brainless at worst, was very impressive at Atletico Club the previous season and was still only young for a goalkeeper, aged 23. Whilst Courtois may not have won many accolades at Chelsea, he was superb at the 2018 World Cup, deservedly winning the tournament's Golden Glove as Belgium finished 3rd. That probably made up Real Madrid's mind in terms of signing Courtois, having flirted with the idea in the past, and unlike with James Rodriguez after the World Cup 4 years earlier, it proved to be a wise decision. Courtois' £35 million release clause, it should be said, made it a bit of a no-brainer. Arrizabalaga's goalkeeping, following his world record-breaking £72 million move to Chelsea meanwhile, was a bit more of a no-hander. I am being mean for comic effect there, when, in actual fact, as is also often forgotten, Arrizabalaga's first season at Chelsea was fine. I mean, it wasn't great, and there was the League Cup final in which he infamously refused to be substituted, but nor was it terrible. Given his age and profile, if looking for comparisons, it was certainly more assured than David De Gea's debut campaign at Manchester United. Whereas De Gea adapted to the rigours of the Premier League in his second season and kicked on from there though, Arrizabalaga's confidence appeared to have been decimated, and in his second season, his performances majorly regressed. Nicknamed Poppadom Hands and the White Ray Charles by Chelsea fans, to whom his skin colour was perhaps just about his only redeeming feature as far as some of them were probably concerned, despite the size of his fee, following his disastrous second season, Arrizabalaga was replaced by Edouard Mendy for £22 million from Rennes. Arrizabalaga might actually be Chelsea's worst signing in recent years, which is saying something, since they have done some of the worst business in the entire history of football since his arrival. Chelsea might regret spunking £72 million on a man who couldn't catch COVID, even if he had a one-night stand at one of the Tories' lockdown-era parties at Downing Street, but I tell you one purchase you won't regret, and that is a Pornstar Martini from David Bentley's La Sala.
Pornstar Fridays at La Sala Chigwell. Come and join us. 4th of March, 8 PM onwards. We've got live singers, DJs, we've got martinis, double XL, 5 different flavours. It'd be a great night. And it makes me awkward just saying it. I'll be there. Will you?
I regret to inform you all that La Sala Chigwell closed down permanently in 2018. Funnily enough, Arrizabalaga hasn't replaced Thibaut Courtois just the once, but twice, recruited by Real Madrid on loan in the summer after Courtois tore his ACL. Arrizabalaga has played 18 games for Los Blancos in all competitions this season, sharing roughly equal minutes with Andre Lunin until Courtois returns. And Carlo Ancelotti has hinted that Real Madrid are unlikely to sign the Spaniard from Chelsea on a permanent basis. 5th, UNICEF to Qatar Airways. I like to think outside of the box on this channel. I know, most of you are probably just expecting players and, at a push, maybe the odd manager in this 7, but I like to spring more surprises than David Bentley firing a football across the street straight into the glass frontage of his own bar in Marbella. Bloody madman. That is why I've included a sponsorship agreement in this 7 though, because I like to think outside of the box and spring surprises, that is, not specifically because David Bentley tried to sabotage his own bar and restaurant for absolutely no good reason. Barcelona have a motto, "Més que un club," more than a club, which goes back to the club being a symbol of Catalan culture and, at one time, under the Franco dictatorship, one of the few places where Catalan people could safely speak their own language. It also feeds into an idea or narrative of Barca having higher ethical standards and a more community-based ethos than most superclubs. And for many years, the club's sponsorships and commercial agreements fed into that. Whilst most big clubs like Manchester United or their El Clasico rivals Real Madrid adopted front-of-shirt sponsors as soon as they became a thing in the early 1980s, looking to maximise revenue, Barcelona never had anything on the front of their shirts other than their own club badge and the logo of their kit manufacturers, all the way until 2006. Even then, Barca resisted the temptation to maximise revenue, instead offering up some of the most valuable advertising real estate in world football to one of the world's largest charities, the United Nations International Children's Emergency Fund, or UNICEF. Not only did Barca reject the chance to make upwards of £20 million a season by partnering with a for-profit business, they actually paid UNICEF £1 million a year as part of the 5-year deal. Barcelona's sponsorless, and subsequently UNICEF emblazoned shirts, made them unique and iconic, and was believed to be at least partially offset by far greater sales, even when the first team weren't at their strongest. At the beginning of the 2010s though, citing the financial crisis and more than €400 million of debt, Barcelona's new president, Sandro Rosell, reversed one of the most lauded partnerships in world football. Instead, Barca signed the most lucrative shirt sponsorship deal in the history of football, worth twice as much as the deal their rivals Real Madrid had with the bookmakers bwin. To make matters worse, to my mind at least, they initially dressed it up as another charitable partnership. In the 2011-12 and 2012-13 seasons, the sponsor on the front of the Barcelona shirt was the Qatar Foundation, a state-owned non-profit organisation founded by the Emir of Qatar, which has been accused of being a vehicle for peddling influence and lobbying. Following the first 2 years of the €170 million deal, however, the Qataris had the option to switch the Qatar Foundation sponsorship to an advert for Qatar Airways instead, at a time of their choosing. Unsurprisingly, the time that they chose was to do so after 2 seasons, so at the earliest possible opportunity. Barcelona went from having the moral high ground of offering up their shirt sponsorship for free to a charity that saves children's lives, to taking a record-breaking fee from a dictatorship to advertise a state-owned airline destroying the planet that those same children will inherit, all while more than doubling their debt. I hope that it was worth it, Barca. Dearie me, what a sad little life. So much for Me Que Un Club. If you ask me, there is only one establishment in Spain that is truly more than just a club these days, and that is La Sala Portabanús, which is also a restaurant, a terrace, and a live music venue. Fourth, Raheem Sterling to Jordan Ibe. We've all been there as football fans, where your club loses a brilliant player and you try to convince yourselves as a collective that, hey, hang on a minute, maybe they weren't actually that good. I went to school with a Leeds United fan who would spend years building up Jermaine Beckford, Luciano Becchio, Fabian Delph, Max Gradel, Kasper Schmeichel, Robert Snodgrass, and about 50 other players, telling anyone who'd listen that they were a surefire thing to win the Ballon d'Or, and then, as soon as someone actually signed them and they no longer played for Leeds, oh, him? Nah, always thought he was overrated, to be honest, mate. We've had their pants down with that one. Adam Clayton is the one that you really want to keep an eye on. That is an extreme example, but we're all partially guilty of it. I saw Hull City fans that tried to convince themselves that Keane Lewis Potter would be easy to replace after his move to Brentford, and even some that said we'd already done it when the Iranian prince, Aliar Saeed Manesh, arrived. I think that it is called cope and seethe. Or maybe hopium is a more appropriate term in these circumstances. Well, in the summer of 2015, it was Liverpool's turn. Having made Raheem Sterling the most expensive 15-year-old in the history of football when they signed him from Queen's Park Rangers, the Kingston-born and Brent-raised kid repaid their faith in him tenfold. When he made his debut in March 2012, aged 17, Sterling became the third youngest Liverpool player of all time, and before long, he was one of the club's star men. In the 2013-14 season, aged 18 to 19, Sterling hit double figures for both goals and assists, as Liverpool only narrowly missed out on the Premier League title, starring in a fantastic front three alongside Luis Suarez and Daniel Sturridge. The following season, in what we have already established in this video, was a much worse and much less free-scoring Liverpool team. Still aged only 19 to 20, Sterling replicated the feat. Double figures for both goals and assists once again. After Liverpool finished 6th that season though, failing to qualify for the Champions League and not looking likely to do so anytime soon, Sterling joined Manchester City for a potential £49 million, making him the most expensive English footballer of all time. Fear not though, Liverpool fans, because the Reds had an ace up their sleeve. According to club legend John Aldridge, and some less famous and less credentialed Liverpool supporters, young Jordan Ibe, signed by Liverpool from Wycombe Wanderers in 2015, was not only the man to replace Sterling, but was actually going to become better than a 20-year-old, with 31 goal contributions in 68 games over the last 2 seasons. Ibe, as you most likely already know and will have guessed by his inclusion in this 7 if you didn't, did not become better than Raheem Sterling, nor was he even a passable replacement. He played 14 games the following season and, it must be said, 41 the season after that, though he still only managed 8 goal contributions, and in his first summer in charge, Jurgen Klopp replaced him with Sadio Mane. So Liverpool got their Sterling replacement in the end, and an excellent one at that. But Jordan Ibe, who now plays for Ebbsfleet United in the 5th tier of English football, having only played 1 game of football in the last 4 years, aged 28, most assuredly wasn't it.
What a destination this is, 5-star luxury, and what you can do, you can just fly in London City Airport, EasyJet, British Airways, Monarch, you can fly anywhere. Look, it's starting to rev its engines now, this could be you. You can come here, enjoy your time, you could be on the plane having fun, look at it.
Third, Roman Abramovich to Todd Bowley. I mean, does this one really require any explanation? Well, I suppose it should be said that morally speaking, going from a Russian oligarch who became a billionaire by effectively robbing the Russian people, once lived in an apartment literally at the Kremlin, and was the first person to recommend to Boris Yeltsin that Vladimir Putin should be his successor as the president of Russia, to one of many sleazy American hedge fund billionaires who has amassed their fortune through co-founding an asset management firm, that is probably an upgrade on that front at least. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's not whiter than white, but he's probably got a bit less blood on his hands. From a football perspective, it is a downgrade so severe that it absolutely deserves a podium place in this 7. Abramovich was the man who parked his tank on the Premier League's lawn in 2003 and reshaped English and European football with Chelsea at the head of that particular snake. His unprecedented investment took Chelsea from being a decent cup team who had only ever won one top-flight league title all the way back in 1955 into one of the premier forces, again, of not just English, but European football. Back-to-back Premier League titles arrived within 3 years of Abramovich's takeover, and there would be 3 more before he left, along with 2 Champions Leagues and 14 other trophies. Bowley, along with Clear Lake Capital, Mark Walter, and Hans-Jörg Weiss, who together form the investors in the Blueco consortium, which acquired the club after Abramovich's assets were frozen and seized by the UK government, has succeeded in sinking Chelsea at an even rapider pace that Abramovich built them up. His debut campaign, following the highest spending season in the entire history of world football, heralded a mighty 12th place finish, Chelsea's lowest in almost 30 years. And this season, after another £400 million investment on transfers alone, forget about wages and all of the managerial compensation fees, which was once again the most of any team on the planet, Chelsea currently find themselves 11th in the Premier League, closer to the bottom 3 points-wise than to the top 4, let alone the title. What else is there to be said? One can only imagine Todd Bowley, sitting in his director's box, looking out around Stamford Bridge and thinking to himself,
Well, I've demolished this.
good job, Todd.
I mean, good job. Yeah, I mean, I'm liking it. Yeah, I love it. I love it. Look at it. It's got champagne. Yeah. Cheers. Yeah, cheers.
Second, Romelu Lukaku to Cenk Tosun. When it comes to the funniest downgrades, you do well to beat Everton replacing Romelu Lukaku, one of the most prolific centre-forwards of his generation, with Cenk Tosun, a man who averaged less than 1 goal every 5 games in the Premier League. I must confess that this one is probably bumped up a couple of places in the amusing stakes because a close friend of mine boldly predicted in front of our whole friendship group that Tosun would win the Premier League Golden Boot in his first full campaign. The former Besiktas man proceeded to score 3 Premier League goals that season, so fewer than he had in his first half season. Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, Sadio Mane and Mohamed Salah jointly won that season's Golden Boot, narrowly pipping Tosun to the crown with 22 goals apiece. In fairness, Tosun did score an awful lot of goals for Besiktas and for Gaziantepspor before that. Across both stints, Tosun scored 113 goals in 270 games, winning the Turkish Footballer of the Year award immediately before joining the Toffees midway through the 2017-18 campaign. Lukaku, meanwhile, had struck 87 times in 166 games during his 4 seasons at Goodison Park, having spent his last couple of years on Merseyside persistently being linked with moves elsewhere. In the end, it was Manchester United who won that particular race, signing Lukaku for an initial £75 million, rising to £90 million with add-ons. The move made Lukaku potentially the most expensive footballer of all time, soon to be blown out of the water later that summer by Neymar's move to PSG. It would be fair to describe Lukaku's time at Old Trafford as a bit of a mixed bag, as he struck 42 times in 96 games, but was accused of not being as sharp or as lean as he had been at Everton, and failing to become the main man at Man United. He certainly fared better than Tosun, though, who Everton signed for a whopping £27 million. In place of the first Everton player to score 20-plus league goals in a season since Gary Lineker, Tosun scored a grand total of 11 goals in 61 games for the Toffees, only 9 of which came in the Premier League, spread out over 5 seasons. In 2022, at long last, Tosun was released, having valiantly played his part in the financial and regulatory trouble that has since materialised at Everton. Tosun, along with the likes of Yerry Mina, Yannick Bolasie and Gylfi Sigurdsson, is one of the many reasons why Everton's accountants certainly aren't partying at the moment. Unlike anyone who hires a venue at La Sala Gibraltar, which comes with a free room included.
You get everything. I mean, what more do you want? I mean, look at the bed. It just makes me want to just go, hey! Look at that. You can get all your family on it, your girlfriend, whoever you want. Or your boyfriend, whatever.
Oh, honestly, dearie me. I'm not even trying at this stage, am I? Pathetic segue. I should be ashamed. Much like a man who advertises his bar, restaurant and hotel, which is set on a boat, by comparing it to the most famous boat ever to have been sunk.
You come out here and look at this. This is perfect. Look, it's like the Titanic, but it's floating.
Good of him to assure us that, unlike the Titanic, La Sala is floating. They don't teach that in marketing school, do they? First, Jack Walker to the Venkies. Chelsea fans who think that they've had it bad, going from Roman Abramovich to Todd Bowley, ought to consult a Blackburn Rovers fan on the real meaning of the word pain. From winning the title to finishing 12th in the Premier League table, that's child's play. Try going from the summit of the English game to getting relegated twice in 6 seasons, all the way down to League One. Think that the journey from Tuchel to Potter to Lampard to Poch in 2 years is bad? Try going from Sam Allardyce to Steve Keenan Henning Berg. The Venki's ownership of Blackburn Rovers has been an extraordinary exercise in self-sabotage. A local-born steel magnate who moved to Jersey for tax reasons before disposing of his business for £360 million in 1992, Jack Walker bought Blackburn in January 1991, stating his ambition to turn Rovers into the greatest club in England and threatening to make Manchester United look cheap. Blackburn were in the second tier at the time, and had been since the 1960s, but in Walker's first full season, after signing the likes of Colin Hendry and Mike Newell, they won promotion via the playoffs. They were soon joined by the likes of Chris Sutton, Graham Lasso and Alan Shearer, and in 1995, Blackburn won the Premier League title. The end of the millennium was tough on Blackburn, who lost the likes of Shearer, Sutton and Lasso to Premier League rivals, and after squandering the proceeds of those transfers, they were relegated in 1999. In 2000, Jack Walker died of cancer, but his family, through the Jack Walker Trust, continued to own the club with some success, gaining promotion in 2001, winning the League Cup in 2002, and twice making top 6 finishes in the Premier League. In November 2010, though, the Walker family relinquished their control of the club, selling to Indian poultry conglomerate VH Group through a new holding company called Venki's London Limited for £23 million, plus about the same amount in debt. Within weeks, they had sacked Sam Allardyce with the club sat 13th in the Premier League table and placed his first team coach Steve Keane in charge. Keane seemed about as shocked at that decision as everyone else, and though Blackburn narrowly avoided relegation in his first half season, the following term things turned sour. Promising youngster Phil Jones departed, along with the likes of Brett Emerton and Nikola Kalinic. In their place, only the experienced Yakubu inspired any confidence, and Blackburn plummeted to 19th and were relegated. Rovers are yet to return to the Premier League, though they are at least out of League One now, 5 points above the Championship relegation zone at the time of this recording. Just when you think that things can't get any worse though, earlier this season, news broke that the Venki's parent company, Venkateshwara Hatcheries Private Limited, were in dispute with the Indian government owing to tax issues, and had seen their assets seized in India. It is a far cry from the greatest club in England or making Manchester United look cheap. Downgrades don't get much worse than going from your greatest owner of all time, who took you back into the top flight for the first time in 30 years, and then usurped the likes of Manchester United and Arsenal to win a Premier League title, to allegedly tax-dodging battery chicken farmers under investigation on the other side of the planet, who've overseen 2 relegations, decimated attendances, and have racked up over £150 million in debt, almost all of which is owed directly to them. That is it for today's video then. I'm not really sure what else there is to add, other than... Thank you all very much, as ever, for watching, and of course, an extra thanks to our special guest, David Bentley, today. I hope that you enjoyed today's video. Hit the like button if that was the case. Let me know your thoughts down below in the comments, and of course, goes without saying, make sure that you're subscribed, and have notifications turned on both for this channel and for my second channel, Alfie Potsama, both of which should be about to appear on your screens now, along with a couple of videos that you might enjoy watching after this one. You could also find me on Twitter, Instagram, or Threads by the username at HITC Sevens on all 3, should you wish to do so, and all of those links plus a whole lot more should be down in the video description below. Cheers.